Shabbat Shalom. On 6 days, work may be done, but on the seventh day you shall have a Sabbath of complete rest, holy to the Lord. Whoever does any work shall be put to death. There aren't many statements like that in the Torah, especially with regard to ritual observances. You've heard me speak about Shabbat at different times before, but today, as we read from the final two parshiot in the book of Exodus, Vayakel and Pekudei, seemingly about building our sacred home, the tabernacle, I want to examine this last phrase in the reminder of keeping Shabbat, you shall be put to death. Now, I am not here to berate anybody. Rather, I think it's important that we think about why this is seen as a result for not stopping work. At first blush, it looks like this is a reward and punishment. If you don't do this, then that will happen. But maybe there is something deeper than that. Maybe it's more than just a reward and punishment scenario. As we can read in our Etz Chaim, one commentary says that we shouldn't take these words literally, but rather understand them to mean that those who ignore Shabbat forfeit their souls. That is, that they become dead to the spiritual dimension of life. While I agree that we should read this line metaphorically, not literally, I would venture to offer another reading by thinking about the nature of Shabbat, by comparing it to other moments in our lives, then how it relates to our lives, and finally, that we might have a better understanding of this statement. Taking us away from Shabbat for a moment, let us think about what we don't do in our lives that we should do, probably because it's good for us. We should go to the doctor at least once a year. We should go to the dentist for a cleaning. We should choose to eat healthy, grabbing an apple instead of a donut for a snack. And yet, we don't always do the things that we should be doing. Why not? Why don't we take care of ourselves? Why do we think that we'll just be okay? Our Jewish tradition implores us to take care of ourselves. This morning, I'd like to share a few texts that offer us guidance on such a topic. We begin in Deuteronomy chapter 4, where we read, "Take utmost care and watch yourself scrupulously. For your own sake, therefore, be most careful." We must ask, why is this important? What does it mean to take care of ourselves scrupulously? To answer this, we must turn to the later chapter in Deuteronomy, where we read, "I call heaven and earth to record this day against you. I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore choose life, that both you and your seed may live." But more than that, more than just choosing life, we must look at a really interesting midrash which elucidates the meaning of this verse by taking care of our bodies. We read in the midrash that Hillel the elder, the famous Hillel, once when he concluded his studies with his disciples, walked along with them. His disciples asked him, "Master, where are you going?" He answered them to perform a religious duty. What they asked is this religious duty. He said to them to wash in the bathhouse. They said, "Is that a religious duty?" "Yes," he replied. "If the statues of kings which are erected in theaters and circuses are scoured and washed by the men who are appointed to look after them, and who obtains their maintenance through them, shouldn't we, having been created in God's image and likeness, take care of ourselves?" This midrash is so powerful, and there are so many blessings that we say every morning, which exemplify how grateful we are for our body, especially when everything works. How important, therefore, is it that we see taking care of our bodies and extension our minds and our souls as important as performing a ritual obligation? Of course, this then shows how we can make the connection to Shabbat and why we might metaphorically, or God forbid, literally die if we don't take time to stop. I believe that Shabbat is there as a day of rest to allow us to refresh, to rejuvenate, and to recharge. It doesn't mean to do nothing, Being here is the observance of Shabbat. You are working to restore your souls. Shabbat tells us that it is just impossible to work 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. And if we don't observe a Shabbat, we will die. Does this mean we will be struck by lightning? No. But it does mean that there are consequences to our actions. Just as if we smoke, we are hurting ourselves and others. If we don't get the checkups at our doctors, we might be missing something. If we don't run or exercise, we might do something to our bodies and our minds. And if we don't observe Shabbat, the Torah is telling us, if we don't take time to stop, death might be upon us. There are numerous parts of our Torah where we see an if-then clause. If we do something, something good will happen. If we don't do something, something bad will happen. The classic example of this is the second paragraph of the Shema, which can be a bit theologically troubling. We read in that paragraph, which also comes from the book of Deuteronomy, if you listen and follow all of the mitzvot that God said, then the land will find favor. But if you don't and you stray, God's wrath will come upon us. But we know too many bad things that have happened to good people to believe this literally. But if we take a closer look and also realize that this text is talking about how we should treat the land, then we also see how this does work. If we treat the land like it should be treated, being environmentally conscious, then the land will work for us. However, if we continue to do things for the earth that are terrible, the land might die, and the eventual consequence is we too might not survive. And so you can see the impact and the import of our statement. It's not just about Shabbat, it's a more general context of all of our mitzvot. If we don't take care of ourselves the way the tradition has laid it out for us, we are putting ourselves in danger. This parsha is about building the tabernacle. It's about the intricacies of how it is built and the expert attention that it demands. Our bodies are no different. We need to build them and strengthen them. We need to care for them and repair them. We need to ensure that what we put in them is sacred. And so, just as I hope all of you do all of the things you should do to keep your bodies healthy, I hope you too will continue to see the value in Shabbat, not just from a spiritual perspective, but from a practical perspective. Continue to take the break from your normal routine. Come to shul, spend time with family and friends. For that helps us cultivate a culture of self-care in our community where we can slow down, listen, begin again, and be refreshed. Shabbat Shalom.